a current two-way contract for their team, a guy that up until this point pretty much only played garbage time, before their past 2 games anyway, playing 6 games in which entirely were garbage time. But following his 21-point outburst on Saturday night, the first game of their back-to-back in their loss to Portland, 21 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 3 3-point shots, he got another opportunity on the second night of their back-to-back. Even in spite of their team being fairly healthy, having both of Luka Doncic and LeBron back, not to mention with Rui Hachimura, and with both DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes available, Drew Timme still found his way into the rotation, and he found a way to make another impact too. No, maybe not another 21-point game, only having 3 points on 1 of 4 from the field, 1 of 2 from beyond the arc, albeit with 3 boards and 2 assists to go with it, but I think he actually looked pretty good. In fact, he was part of one of, if not their best lineup during the entire game. That coming in the second quarter, with a 5-man combination of LeBron, Marcus Smart, Jared Vanderbilt, Drew Timme himself, and DeAndre Ayton, Ayton at the 5 with Drew Timme at the 4. Believe it or not, that lineup went on a 14-4 run in only 3.5 minutes during the beginning of the second quarter. Not only that though, but they fared surprisingly well on both ends of the court. Even with Drew Timme at the 4 and maybe not being the most mobile 4, not the best defensive player in the world, but he actually fared pretty well. On top of that, Ayton actually looked good at the 5, next to Drew Timme at the 4, even in spite of the lack of playing time together, and not to mention the lack of a too-big lineup this season, which they don't really have a roster built for, at least not very often. But this 5-man combination actually worked pretty well, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see some variation of it again, likely very soon, maybe even during their next game. And with that in mind here, let's talk more about Drew Timme, what he's shown throughout their past 2 games, how he's found his way into the rotation, in spite of his not-so-great athletic ability, in spite of his not-so-great defensive ability, in spite of his pretty traditional, or rather old-fashioned offensive game, probably more of a fit for the 80s or 90s NBA, not the 2020s NBA. But we're going to talk about his kind of unique and dying skill set in today's game, why he could help the Lakers at least in some matchups, and how he may have found himself as a permanent member of the rotation if he can maintain this going forward. So we're going to talk about that and try to break it all down here. And well, to begin, if you have no idea who Drew Timme is and where he came from, we're talking about a 2023 undrafted player out of Gonzaga University. Like I said, he was kind of viewed as a traditional, old-fashioned, and dying breed coming into the NBA, which is primarily why he went undrafted. Isn't the hybrid athletic 4-5 that can space the floor or that can switch on defense, or can be an athletic lob threat. Rather, he's more of a low post oriented, throwback player that can score around the rim, can operate out of the high post and create for himself or for teammates, and a guy that's kind of undersized at 6'9", 235 pounds, with a 7'1", nearly 7'2" wingspan, weighing roughly 235 to 240 pounds, can sometimes play at the 5, but is more so a 4, depending on the matchup anyway. Like I said, he did play a little bit at both the 4 and the 5 during their past 2 games. You know, kind of out of necessity during their game against Portland, playing the 5 because they didn't have Ayton or Hayes available in said matchup, only having himself and Maxi Kleber, and he turned out to be more productive than Maxi Kleber. Definitely not a bad game for Maxi Kleber, but not up to a 21-point game, 4-assist game like Drew Timme had, not to mention with 3 3-point shots to go with it. And in my opinion, that might be the most intriguing part about his game, as he didn't show much of it throughout college, which would have really helped him when it came to the NBA draft. But apart from the occasional 3-point shot, apart from the occasional long-distance mid-range shot, he didn't really space the floor that much, neither from the 3-point line or above the rim. However, if he did have more of that in his bag, he may have gotten drafted, as like I said, he had plenty of low post scoring ability, plenty of playmaking ability out of the high post, and is regarded as a very high IQ player that simply didn't translate well to the modern NBA. But even in spite of his lack of athletic ability, at least by NBA standards, lack of his defensive ability, neither at the rim or on the 3-point line, if he had that 3-point shot and if he can maintain to be a fairly above average 3-point shooter, especially as a hybrid 4-5, then there definitely could be a future in the NBA for Drew Timme. After all, he's shown the ability to score at the NBA level already, doing it with the Brooklyn Nets last season, albeit in only 9 games. But in that time frame, he put up over 12 points per game, grabbed over 7 rebounds per game, dished out over 2 assists per game to under 2 turnovers per game, shot a fairly decent 44% from the field, and knocked down a few 3-point shots at a 25.7% clip. Again, not great, but showing the ability to score at the NBA level showing the ability to be productive offensively, even a pretty good rebounder and passer to go with it, though I'm not quite sure anyone fully believed in the 3-point shot of Drew Timme. Though again, he's shown more of it during this season, knocking down 4 in only 2 games with the Lakers so far, only 2 games in which he's played rotational minutes to them, knocking down 3 against Portland, and knocking down another one in their game last night against Toronto, not to mention that a couple of which were pretty difficult 3-point shots to make, like this one against Portland for example, here on the fast break with Rui Hachimura bringing the ball up, finding Drew Timme who is sinking to the corner, catching it and not even fully setting his feet or getting his body squared up, letting it fly with a defender running at him, and knocking it down. Pretty impressive for a hybrid 4-5, let alone a big in general. That's a pretty difficult thing to do and a pretty tough shot to make, really showing off his 3-point shooting ability and long-term potential. Again, he definitely does have other parts of his game that are worth highlighting, whether you're talking about the low post scoring ability, low post playmaking, simply the passing vision, but do not understate the importance of the 3-point shooting to Drew Timme. In my opinion, that's really the pathway to playing time for him, especially if he's going to play with DeAndre Ayton or Jackson Hayes at the 4 going forward. I mean, he directly showed why last night, getting playing time in the second quarter, and after Luka Doncic came in, that is super important, which he proved why. I mean, on the first play for DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic, after Luka checked in, Luka gets a lob to DeAndre Ayton, spacing the floor vertically, and that definitely attracted the attention of the defense. As the next play down the court, they sunk heavily into a drop and covered both Luka Doncic via double team and DeAndre Ayton with a defender fronting him in Ochai Agbaji, and even Timme's defender helping out here too, therefore leaving him completely wide open, Luka finding him for a 3-point shot, and Drew Timme showing that they do have to pay attention to him, that they can't simply seg off of him to double team Luka Doncic while simultaneously cutting off DeAndre Ayton as a lob threat from Luka Doncic. They have to pay attention to him too, which he proves by knocking down the 3-point shot assisted by Luka Doncic. I mean, if he can keep doing that and eventually become a 3-point shooting threat that defenses pay attention to and can't afford to leave wide open, he definitely will be in the rotation going forward. I mean, having the ability of a lob threat like Ayton or Hayes on the court with him, then with Timme at the 3-point line, whether it's at the top, wing, or corner, as a 3-point shooting threat, that could do a lot for their offense. Something that they don't really have at this point, something they were hoping to get with Maxi Kleber, but he hasn't really shot the ball that well. On top of that, really hasn't been that much of a threat. On top of that, has been hurt off and on throughout the entire season. But with Drew Timme, who is a bit more reliable, whether it's from the 3-point line, as a low post scoring threat, or simply at this point in his NBA career, this might be an intriguing option for their team and rotation going forward, giving JJ Redick another rotational option, not simply a small ball lineup or simply one big at the 5, but with Drew Timme to kind of run a 2-big lineup. You know, Timme's not the biggest player in the world again, but definitely does have that low post scoring ability, is a good rebounder, is a pretty physical player in general, albeit not a great defender. It's a pretty interesting option that I think Redick will and does have intentions of trying out going forward. Now, don't get me wrong here, I'm definitely not saying that's a matchup-proof lineup, not saying that it will work against every team, in every situation, against every kind of defense or scheme, but I think it might have some potential here. Shown against a fairly athletic team like Toronto, a team that is fairly switchable, can definitely move the ball up and down the court, I think they're number 1 in fast break points per game. If it worked against them, I think it will work against a number of teams. You know, maybe not against a top tier opponent, maybe not against an ultra switchable team and a really elite defense like OKC, but I think it might work against more opponents than we might think. And at the bare minimum, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them try to make it work against other teams going forward. Though again, do keep in mind that we are talking about a 2-game sample here. It's not a 5, 10, 15, 20 game sample yet. Yes, he's looked pretty good, and I've been impressed with Drew Timme on both ends of the court. The scoring ability, the 3-point shooting, the passing, and the rebounding. Even the defense has not been that bad with him. Again, keep in mind that it's only been 2 games so far. Hopefully he can maintain this. Hopefully he can maintain the 3-point shooting, the quality offense, and what he has been able to do with their team so far, but it is a bit early yet. Hopefully he can maintain this. Hopefully he can become a permanent member of the rotation, add a different dynamic to their offense, and simply be a different player than what they currently have in their rotation. I'd love to see that with Drew Timme, but it's too early to be sure quite yet. However, with all of that in mind here, what do you guys think? How have you felt about Drew Timme so far? what he's shown offensively, with the scoring ability, shooting, rebounding, everything that he's shown or maybe has not shown so far. How have you felt about him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day or night,